So today I celebrate the ninth anniversary of when I began writing professional level computer games. My first game I ever wrote was Othello, 8x8 Othello. There's a contest for 10x10 Othello this year that I'm entering as we speak. Unfortunately, the difference in the time zones is giving us a little bit of a headache with how we arrange our contest, but let's play around while I talk. So, a little background on how I started writing computer games. It was toward the end of my PhD program, and I was going to graduate in March, and this was December of 2011. I was going to graduate in March of 2012. There's just one little problem, though. I had good grades. I had a very solid thesis. Oh, I put the wrong setting. I had a very solid thesis, and the problem was that I was single. Not that I have a problem with that, but I had attended all of my classmates' graduations and thesis defenses, and I didn't think I could do that as a single guy. There's just a lot of bias, and in retrospect, I should have stood up for myself. I wasn't lonely or anything. I was embarrassed about having to go to the defense and the graduation as a single. And I came up with this idea that if I competed in the Computer Olympiad and did very well, that I could meet somebody there or meet somebody back home, and just to have somebody to stand in at my defense or graduation. That's how silly it was. That's what I thought I should do. In retrospect, it was wrong, but that's the kind of background I come from. And so I wrote 8x8 Othello. There was a Computer Olympiad. I think it was January of that year, 2012. It wasn't the Computer Olympiad. It was a different conference, actually. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go there. I got tied up back home writing my thesis, collaborating with others, among other issues, and I didn't go. But it helped. Having the game to write gave me a little distraction to forget about how embarrassed I was doing all these things as a single guy. I still have that problem, believe it or not. Sometimes I love going out by myself, whether it be, especially during COVID, when these things are so hard to do, going to a restaurant, going to a bowling alley. And unfortunately, people judge me for going out as a single guy. I've actually had times where I've walked out of a place. I go to a restaurant and people think I'm crazy for going alone. I walk out and I go to a different restaurant that might be a little bit more accepting. And yeah, that's a big problem of mine. I ended up graduating as it is, as a single guy. And, a little challenge with that. Now, in 2012, I had a little snag of beginning my first job after graduation. The team I wanted to apply for, they were in the process of changing things, and so there was a good month and a half before I could start the job. And I wrote a number of computer games to pass the time. I wrote a number of shogi variants. I wrote Lines of Action, and what was the other one? Clobber, which I hope to this year. I think I'm neck and neck with the number one Clobber program. We tied 1-1, and we might have to play a rematch at some point. I competed in my first Computer Olympiad in the summer of 2013, and I ended up going to Fuji near Tokyo. In 2013, at the conference, I learned about Monte Carlo tree search, and the first game I ever wrote involving Monte Carlo was one that one of my opponents had designed, actually, Einstein. Now, Einstein involves rolling dice and moving pieces based on your dice roll, kind of like backgammon. And every year when I compete in Einstein, I tend to get very unlucky with the dice. And I really want to see how my program is doing, but I get so unlucky with the dice that I don't know if my program's making any mistakes. I end up getting, I think I got a silver medal and several bronze medals out of it. Oh well. I kind of don't want to waste time competing in that anymore because I often enter with dozens of games and scheduling is always tricky enough, and then I get unlucky with the dice and whatever. It's very heartbreaking every time. Hopefully, eventually, we'll have some way to automate the game, so we'll have thousands of rounds, and that will finally settle the score at just what my program is doing. Anyways, that's going to be a big problem when I get to backgammon. I'm writing backgammon at the moment. Anyways, so in 2013 I started writing Monte Carlo Tree Search. Now, the following year, for some reason, we didn't have a conference 2014, which was really nice because conferences have a tendency to chew up most of my vacation time. So in 2014 I was able to finally to go on a couple of vacations that I've been putting off. Now in 2015, the game 2048 was a craze at the time. And it was my first brush with machine learning. And to give you an idea of how machine learning comes into play in the game of 2048. So, if I can get my browser to work, let's pull up a picture of the 2048 game. Images. So the way computers play 2048 is that, let's say you're in a position that looks like this, right? This is a great one to show. Now the computer is going to want to estimate based on the position how many points it can win, right? And the way it does that is it looks at configurations of cells, right? Let's say this 2x3 configuration. It says, okay, when I see that configuration, it's worth X points. And the way it calculates X is with machine learning. It plays billions and billions of rounds, and statistically, every time that configuration has shown up, it has scored some number of points, right? And it learns that. And the trick is to compress figure out which configurations are important on the board based on some heuristics, and to compress your data in some way. And I got so fixated on that, but I learned a lot about machine learning doing that. That was my first brush with machine learning. I kind of funny because late that spring, 2016, I was dating a girl. Finally, I could go to these events with somebody, but I broke up with her because all I wanted to do was write 2048. Actually, she thought I was cheating on her when I was writing the computer program. She thought, why are you on the computer so much? Who are you talking to? And she demanded to see my Facebook. And I said, well, you know, yes, there is another. I confided with her. There is another girl. It's the computer program of the AI for 2048. I showed her the computer program, and she was so upset that that was more important than her, and we broke up. It's kind of funny how I do this a lot. When I'm single, I miss the girl. When I have the girl, I miss being single. I flip-flop so much, it's not even funny anymore. And I learned something out of every time. I think I'm in the process of flipping back again. I'll get to that later in this video. But I learned a lot out of every relationship with a girl and every relationship with myself. I flip-flopped about 10 times since starting writing the computer games. 5 on my own and 5 with a girl. Now, in 2016, I traveled to Warsaw, Poland after my conference. I had a conference in Amsterdam, and I needed a fresh wave of inspiration for my games, so I traveled a little bit, and I went to a couple board game tournaments where you actually sit face to face and play, not with a computer, but as a human, right? I went to what game was that? Oh, International Checkers tournament in actually it was Krakow, Poland. I think I might have recorded a video while I was there. I only went there to observe. I don't speak Polish, so it'd be kind of awkward for me to play there. I mean, I probably could, but it'd be kind of awkward. and just go in there watching to get some inspiration for how I'm going to program the next AI. I visited the memorial for Mary Curry. I'm inspired to meet somebody just like Mary Curry in my own life, attractive and smart. While I was there, I asked Mary Curry if she could transfer some of her ideas to me. And I later that night I wrote my first AI for the game of three-dimensional tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe. I did some machine learning for that as well. Now my first neural network that I ever programmed, because for 2048 and for the tic-tac-toe I was doing what are called n-tuple networks, right? Tuples of numbers. Now the first neural network I ever programmed was for the Japanese chess variant of Kyoto Shogi. I had competed in Kyoto Shogi in 2018 in Taiwan, but it wasn't neural networks yet. It was the n-tuple networks, and I had narrowly lost. And I got inspired that maybe if I did some more sophisticated machine learning, I might come close. And so I learned about neural networks. In 2018, I also broke another personal record of mine that I've always wanted to do. I flew 15% to the way to outer space because I flew on a 787. And so I like to think about the neural network game as the first game I ever wrote from 15% up to outer space. I got a few good photographs of the moon, of Jupiter and Saturn while I was up there. And I like it when I write a game somewhere new. The first game I ever wrote in the second world was obviously the 2048. The first game I ever wrote while traveling to the third world was, 9x9 Go. I like to keep tabs of the first game I ever write while visiting various places. The first game I actually write when I'm in outer space will probably be something... I want to do something that's space related when I do that. Okay, so I wrote my first neural network, and I competed in Macau last year, and I won on Kyoto Shogi. Unfortunately, I did terrible in Einstein again because of dice. What else did I do last year? Last year I was kind of sad because I thought I was getting married, and I thought my single life was coming to an end once and for all. And so I competed in... How many games did I compete in Macau that year? 13 or so. And I won 5 gold medals and 1 silver medal, if I remember correctly. A few of them were way out of my league. I only competed in them because I thought my time as a single guy was coming to an end. I took a trip to Taiwan, and I competed in the Taiwan Artificial Intelligence Conference. I did Chinese checkers. I hope to do that again this year. Unfortunately, I had a hard time finding everybody because of the difference in time zones. Hopefully we'll have the actual tournament in person in summer of 2021. Hopefully this will be over. I mean, there's a good reason we called it COVID-19, right? It should be confined to, at most, a year after that, right? It shouldn't be 2 years later we're still dealing with it, right? On March 19th, 2020, we had to stay home in Washington. I think that was the day the executive order came in. And I frantically looked for a long-term Airbnb to move into. I was living in my car at that time because the weather was very nice. And I packed my stuff, went into the Airbnb, and I decided to write my first serious attempt at backgammon. And because this was something new and that the idea of locking in for a couple weeks, it was only a couple weeks at the time. I gave myself 2 weeks to finish that game and go back to normal life and show all my friends what I did during the 2 weeks. And because it was such an exciting vacation for me, at first I named the computer game that I write, I named it Corona Gammon. Unfortunately, that name hasn't aged very well. Sometimes I'll call it the COVID-19 memorial game. And I don't know if it's the #1 game in the world yet. Unfortunately, the other backgammon opponent, the XG guy, never showed up. Informally, I've played my game against XG a couple of times, but the results are inconclusive. So I really hope the XG guy shows up for a formal contest so that we can see where we are. His program apparently can think 13 million moves every second. Mine only does 1 million every second, but I have a different network that's probably longer to compute. So we'll have to see how the trade-off goes. I also do something about the match equity score. Last June, when Seattle got taken over by protesters during the Chaz, I went to visit Chaz a couple times. And during my time there, I got some inspiration to write, Rummikub. And Rummikub has tiles that are many different colors, right? So I gave that program a little bit of a nickname. I called it the All Colors Matter game, because all colors of the board matter. And it was an a protest about Black Lives Matter. And unfortunately, there's no conference for that. It was more of a curiosity that I wrote. What else has been going on? Obviously, we're doing the Computer Olympiad online right now because of all the drama around the world. I wanted to write some artificial intelligence / machine learning for contact tracing. Unfortunately, it's become clear that here in America we love our privacy so much, and I'm not going to be able to get actual data to work with. But it was nice to actually write out of how I would hypothetically use that data. I wish I could actually use it and save a bunch of lives. I've never saved a life in my lifetime, at least not directly. So I thought contact tracing would be my chance to do it, but unfortunately, other people don't have the same mindset, and so we don't have the data to do anything with that. I was hoping I would get some, well, not opponents, but other players to do the game Pandemic, kind of as a tribute to what's going on, and maybe, you know, if we can have a tournament and put it on YouTube and get a lot of views, maybe we could donate the proceeds to solving the real life game of 8 billion players that so many people don't want to play cooperatively like the board game, right? Unfortunately. Anyways, 9 years, and I still feel like I've only scratched the surface. You know, it's sad every time we have a COVID-19 death, you know, on TV, they talk about the family they leave behind. You know, if I die of COVID-19, I accept it, but I want people to remember the games that I leave behind. We don't see too many single people dying of COVID-19 on the news. I think that's kind of unfair. Anyways, if this is one of the last videos I make because I die of COVID-19, please remember the games that I leave behind. Thanks for watching.